All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Daily Sporting is back at it again, and today we are covering the top 10 quarterbacks in the fantasy football season for 2020. Right now, I got Hammer on right now, and introduce yourself, my friend.
What's up, everybody? Not much to say tonight. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing well, and definitely looking forward into diving right into this tonight and giving you guys as much help as we can for this upcoming NFL season.
Absolutely. And tonight, with the top 10 quarterbacks, I think that one of the main things that people need to keep in mind is that there needs to be a certain philosophy when you're drafting your quarterback. It really, I feel like, depends on the flow of the board, who's off, what's the I want to say, like, risk versus reward, with depending on how many points you can get. Certain quarterbacks have that potential and that allure to be really, high and consistent point per game scores, like Jackson and Mahomes, the guys that we've seen consistently producing. And then after that, you could kind of decide on how high and when you want to take these guys. For me, one thing that I really look at when I'm going after quarterbacks is, in fantasy football, I like guys that can run. The reason why is you get more points per yard, or more points for running than you do for passing. In standard scoring leagues, it's 25 passing yards per point, where it is 5 or 10 rushing yards per point. So you get points a lot faster if you're running the ball, which gives them a lot more opportunity to be a lot better during this fantasy football season and being a lot more stable, at least in my opinion. What's your thoughts on that, Jeff?
I definitely agree with that. Definitely want to go with somebody that's a runner because of that whole point system and how it's based upon. And guys such as uh, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson every once in a while, not too much. A couple of guys that could break the pocket and make something happen. They're the ones that normally rack up the points, and it's just a matter of being consistent with them as well. And as we go into this tonight, the one thing that we have to look at when it comes to the quarterbacks from last year and the rankings going into this season is how consistent they were on a week-to-week basis with how many fantasy points that they were averaging every single week. You're gonna need somebody that's gonna be constantly consistent, and it'll definitely help you in the long run, depending on what other guys you have behind the rest of your team.
I definitely agree with that. The quarterbacks, at the end of the day, they set the tone for you. They usually are your highest point per game scorers. You need to build your team out with consistent running backs and wide receivers in order to win any league. So you can't forget about those positions, and that's why they usually get drafted higher, because in most cases, people feel like they can wait on a quarterback. But if you're going to take that first quarterback, for me, the first quarterback that I'm going to take off the board is going to be Lamar Jackson, because of everything that I said about rushing. I mean, it's a real toss-up for me between him and Mahomes. But the reason why I take Jackson there is just he's so dynamic on the ground. He had 1,206 rushing yards last year, and in those, he did that in 176 attempts, which means that he had 6.8 yards per rush. That's disgusting. And he only had 2 fumbles lost. So in 176 attempts with 2 fumbles lost, knowing that the Ravens have built this offense around Lamar Jackson, I love Pat Mahomes, but Lamar Jackson, just because of this groundwork at 28 point, 20, basically at 28 points per game last year, I have Lamar Jackson as the number one quarterback off the board.
You kind of just swayed me just now because I actually did have Mahomes as number one, just based on the fact had he not gotten injured early in the season last year, numbers would have been a little bit would have been better, or probably bested Lamar Jackson, where he would have been the MVP. But everything that you're saying in regards to his rushing numbers, 176 attempts for 1,206 yards, averaging 6.9 a carry, 7 rushing touchdowns. He's averaging close to 28 points on average a game. His fantasy points for the season was just under 416 points. He made the leap to QB1 overall in 2019 after throwing a league-high 36 touchdowns and rushing for 1,200, like we said. Did most of his damage as a runner, but was also efficient as a passer. His true passer rating was 112.5, second highest in the NFL, and his accuracy rating was ranked 5th best.
And my favorite stat is that he had 36 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. that to me shows that he's a guy that at least, he was able to sit there, he was able to get the touchdowns passing the ball, and he wasn't throwing a tremendous amount of picks. So that to me shows that at least as a passer as well, he shows promise and someone that you can kind of like look at as a Michael Vick 2.0.
He also had great pass protection, and that's what you need.
Yep.
And I tell people this from the time I was coaching as well. If your offensive line don't work, then your offense ain't going to work, period. And he last year had the third highest protection rate at 87.3%. The Raiders did lose Marshall Yanda, but drafted his potential replacement in the draft. So expect the offensive line to continue to be a strength in 2020. The only concern right now for Jackson are injury. And in 2020, the Ravens could decide to have him run less to expose their franchise QB for fewer hits. But ultimately, that would hurt his rushing upside to some extent and would be net negative even if he increases his overall passing attempts. The one thing he has said, though, is actually, and I said this to somebody the other day, he actually doesn't want to run. Like, he doesn't like to run unless he absolutely has to. He wants to ultimately be good as an overall passer and throw for touchdown. He'd rather throw touchdowns than run for them.
And here's what I'll end with on Jackson. He averaged 28 points per game. That point per game spread is so much higher than everyone else that the natural regression you can expect from having less rushing yards and potentially a little bit more upside on passing still puts him in the ballpark of being potentially, 4 to 5 points per game more than the next best person, who I have at number 2 as Patrick Mahomes, who I'm absolute love with. He just got his brand new contract. It's like 10 years, $503 million. He last year basically put up 20.8 points per game. He rushes the ball, but he's a great passer as well. He's the all-around best quarterback in the game right now. The only reason why he's not my number 1 fantasy quarterback is just simply because scoring-wise, rushing gets you the points. That's why Jackson's number 1, but I have Mahomes at number 2. Your thoughts, Hammer?
Like I said, you made me sway my decision before because I did have Mahomes as a number 1. But again, another one who's had consistent numbers, and this guy plays in my division, the AFC West. But he's one of those players that I enjoy to watch. He's a very special, talented kid, and I hope that I really do hope this kid has a successful and healthy career because he can shatter records. Regardless of him playing for a rival. I know I'm not supposed to be biased. Like, I could see this kid having a successful career. And the funny thing is, with these 2 top quarterbacks, with our picks for the 2020 fantasy draft for QBs, both of their primary targets were tight ends. You had Mark Andrews, was 23% of Lamar Jackson's passes, and Travis Kelce close to 25% of the target distribution. So it's pretty good.
Yep. And the thing about both of them, they also have prime time vertical threats. You have downtown Hollywood Brown and you have Tyreek Hill. Plus, they drafted another player last year. I completely forgot his name, but they have a couple of burners out there in Kansas City. Markel Hardman. No, that's not it.
Who is it? Because
I forget his name. I'll look it up and leave it in the comments later. But they have a ton of vertical threats in Kansas City, which gives Mahomes, especially in leagues that do special scoring with players that get more than 20 yards on a touchdown, getting bonuses. Mahomes to me has great upside there. He can throw the deep ball great. That's what gives him that huge upside because he can score fast and in a hurry, and we've seen him do it throughout his career. All right. At number 3, I think that's where the waters start to get murky. You start to see like where you can go in a multitude of different directions. But for me, I'm leaning most predominantly with the quarterback from the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott. The reason why I like Dak Prescott at number 3 is last year he put up 21 points per game, and this year we're adding in CeeDee Lamb to the equation. So now you're telling me we're bringing back everything that we had last year, and now we're adding CeeDee Lamb, and he just saw what Mahomes just got paid. So he knows that right now, if he goes out and performs, Jerry Jones is now forced to pay him his money. He cannot sit back and say, "Oh my God, no." This is what the quarterback market has become. So you know what? Dak Prescott more than anyone is there for the money. And I like to bet on players that are there for the money because you know what? Chances are they're going to put up a money season. Your thoughts, Jess?
If Jerry Jones is going to give him that money, you better win him a Super Bowl this season because I feel like that's the only thing that's going to prevent him from getting him getting paid right now. He had a career high with 4,902 passing yards, scoring 33 total touchdowns. He continues to be one of the best values in fantasy football. Mm-hmm. While not generally regarded as a top 5 signal caller, he finishes a QB3 in 2019. Has improved each and every season and may now have the most talented receiving core in all of football.
Yeah. That's the only reason why I'm taking him at that point. We know that traditionally Mike McCarthy did well with Aaron Rodgers, and now he's having more weapons than ever because you have Michael Gallup last year, who was a breakout candidate in my opinion. He can take it deep. He can do a lot on the wide receiver field. And then you signed Amari Cooper, who I am not the biggest fan of Amari Cooper, but with that talent around them, it just leaves Dak Prescott to hit the best options, which lets him play, more of a assist type quarterback where he's just like, dishing out. Okay, you got the good matchup. You got the good matchup. Whereas I believe Jackson and Mahomes create the matchup. They dictate the way that the defense is going to play versus Dak Prescott, which is going to be reading the defense and deciding what to do based on these weapons. And that's why I put him at 3 because in most cases you want a guy that's able to do that, what Dak is able to do. Read the defense, make the best decision, and make the best play. Number 4, we have, I think, a toss-up between a lot of different players. I'm personally going to go with Watson from the Texans. I like a lot of other quarterbacks. The reason why I'm going Watson at number 4 is because he is, I believe, one of those all-pro talents that's consistently getting better, that loves his craft. I think that they got him a couple of more vertical threats in Houston. They're trying to emulate more of a tech Chiefs-style offense and giving Wick Watson more of an opportunity to just be the dominant player in this offense. Last year, he scored 22.1 points per game, so he was a consistently high scorer. We saw him put up numbers, and to me, I got Watson at number 4. What are your thoughts?
I actually have him as 5.
Sure.
But this is going to be a weird season for him in regards to not having his target in DeAndre Hopkins after that ridiculous trade to Arizona. He has Brandon Cooks. Apparently, there have been rumors around like the last week or so that Deshaun Watson kind of wants Antonio Brown to come and sign with them. But
that would be huge.
It would be because he's going to need weapons. And you know what? Right now with
he still has Kenny Stills, right?
He does have Kenny Stills.
And you have Will Fuller. So now you have Will Fuller, Kenny Stills, and Cooks. So if I got all 3 lined up, who do you think is going deep? How are you running that? Who's guarding who?
Cooks is going to be the deep threat.
But Fuller's also a huge deep threat. Now, if I can go deep on outsides, that kind of also opens the box for Johnson, but that's a whole other discussion.
Let's not even go there with him. I still can't get over this trade, and I probably never will. It's probably going to be something that a lot of people don't understand for a very long time. And I definitely think right now that Bill O'Brien better show improve this year because I really believe with the move that he made like this, he's going to be on the hot seat. So they better do something. They better turn it up. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the one thing that the main reason I'm concerned about Watson is I'm looking at last year's target distribution, and 29% of it was DeAndre Hopkins. Like, Kenny Stills was 10%, Will Fuller was 13%, David Johnson was a little under 12%, Fells 9.27, like Cote 6.9. Those are 2 of your tight ends. Like, you guys need to try to incorporate the tight end a little bit more because look at the top 2 that we have right now in Mahomes and Jackson. Tight ends are normally a great security blanket, and those are their primary targets right now. And this is where they're having some great success.
Here's what I will say about Watson: by getting a guy that can really catch passes in Johnson, that kind of gives him an escape valve. And now he has really three vertical threats. So at the end of the day, I understand him not having Hopkins, but now I think they're going to start playing some mass coverage, like different things off of each other. Because you have Cooks, you have Fuller, you have Stills. Between all three of those guys, I think he'll be able to get his numbers, and that's why I do like Watson. But right after that, I have a young up and comer. I have the kid out of Arizona who got the guy that you're just talking about, DeAndre Hopkins. I have Kyler Murray at number 5 for me. One of the big reasons why is he had 93 rush yards in 544 games last year. So he's another one of those things that I like to say is a running quarterback. I like what he's going to be able to do with having Hopkins and Fitzgerald, and you have Kirk and a bunch of good wide receivers. You have Drake last year who really blew up with them. So I like that offense over there in Atlanta. I mean, not Atlanta, in Arizona. The only problem that I have with it is that they're in a really tough division, which is going to set them up for some really intense games with opponents that understand how they play really well. So those are always tough matchups, division rivals. But at 5, I have Murray. What do you got?
I could plug him in at 5. I can tell you right now, the only reason is the addition of Hopkins has great fantasy implications for Murray. He showcases deep ball efficiencies as a rookie, an area of the field Hopkins thrives in. Murray now has a true number 1 receiver in Hopkins. As Fitzgerald turns 37, I still can't believe this dude is still playing at that age.
Yeah, I know,
Before
right?
the season's end, third-year wideout Christian Kirk is more fit for a complementary role.
Mm-hmm.
The Cardinals effective in the run game as well right now, finishing 10th in team rush yards in 2019. The emergence of Kenyon Drake as a highly productive number 1 running back has turned their entire backfield into a dynamic weapon now. Even if Murray's rushing numbers are reduced drastically, he has the tools in the arsenal to put up massive, massive fantasy numbers, surpassing his impressive rookie campaign. The Hopkins trade has totally catapulted Murray's value substantially. Before the acquisition of Hopkins, Murray looked like a surefire late-round sleeper, but now he could be like the 4th QB off the board in fantasy drafts this season.
So you have Murray at 4 and Watson at 5, based on what you're telling me. Right?
How did I have it? I actually had Russell Wilson as 4.
Uh-huh.
I had Watson at 5, and it's I kind of want to flip that a little bit, but I would still kind of consider Murray as a 6 right now.
Now, see, for me, I'm going to honestly tell you that this was a really hard decision for me, and that I actually had to sit back, and these 3 exact quarterbacks that you're talking about were the ones that I was debating between. I really like Watson. I really like Murray. I like Wilson. These are players that if the top guys come off the board, I'm waiting and sleeping on them, and I'm seeing if I want to go quarterback and I kind of want to make sure I kind of like a surefire guy, I'm waiting to see, okay, I'm going to let Mahomes pass more than likely because I'm not going in the 2nd round. Same thing with Jackson. I'm not going in the 2nd and 3rd round for a quarterback. So I'm probably passing on Jackson and Mahomes. Then in the 3rd round, or not in the 3rd round, but with the 3rd quarterback, Dak, you're probably going to expect him going around the 5th round. At that point in time, depending on how my offense is shaping out, that's when I'm probably looking at maybe a quarterback. But then let's just say I skip on Dak because I don't want to pay that price. When I'm looking at Watson, Wilson, and Murray, these are the 3 guys that I can sit and I can wait on. I can sit there and I can look at them and I say, okay, if someone takes Watson, I'm kind of looking like, damn, okay, Wilson and Murray there, I can still go there. These 3 are so interchangeable that based on the fluidity of your board, based on who you have, you can make that decision like, okay, 2 of these guys are gone. Let me take one. Or let me be the first one to take these 3 because I have such a preference of one of them. Or I'm in the middle and the first guy was taken and I want to make sure I get my guy. These are the 3 guys I feel like that you can let slip to the 5th, 6th, 7th round and get them and get that great value point per game. When you look at it, Murray scored 18.58 points per game. Watson was 22.16. Wilson scored 20.85. So they were getting the points. They consistently, Wilson had 72 rush yards for 342 yards and 2 touchdowns. I believe he only had two fumbles last year. So with Wilson, he's a consistent runner that doesn't really fumble the ball. He gets the touchdowns when it needs, so that in the red zone, he's a viable option. Same thing with Murray, same thing with Watson. I think that's why these 3 are interchangeable. I think that's why we have them at 4, 5, and 6 consistently. And I think this leads into the guy that I'm talking at 7, okay, which is Josh Allen. And Josh Allen, I have at number 7 because he does exactly everything these other guys do. The only difference is I don't feel like he has that consistency in throwing the ball like the other guys have, and that's why I have him at 7. I believe that rushing wins titles. He's a guy that I would like to have on my roster with a backup quarterback and be able to plug and play based on matchups and get that high point upside. He has a new weapon in Stephon Diggs. Who do you got at number 7?
I have Josh Allen at 7. You and I are on the same page with this one for everything you just said as well. The kid ran for 109 times for 510 yards, averaging just under 5 yards a carry, 9 touchdowns. Fantasy points averaging 18 a game. Overall, 288 for the season. Passing wise, you're absolutely right. He had a completion percentage of 58.8, completing 271 on 461 attempts, throwing for 3,089 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He is the type of kid that is better on his feet than he is in the pocket. And the thing is, his fantasy success in the first 2 seasons closely relates to his ability to make plays with his legs, and everybody sees that. I watched him play a couple times last season, especially like since we're on the East Coast, we're watching them play the Jets a lot. All I could see the kid do was run, and at times he was another one that I would actually sit there and just focus and just watch what he does. Mm-hmm. His numbers are very closely comparable to that of a young Cam Newton. Yeah. Both rushed from more than 1,100 yards and had 17 rushing touchdowns their first 2 seasons in the league. Mm-hmm. Newton fell off his third with just 6 rushing touchdowns and 21 in his next 3 seasons. Newton rushed for 22 touchdowns in his first 2. Mm-hmm. This is important to note because Allen's fantasy success has been buoyed by his rushing touchdown production. In 2020, the Bills have upgraded their running back with rookie Zach Moss replacing Frank Gore. I think Frank Gore is now a Jet. Gore led the Bills in attempts inside the 5-yard line, so that could easily be the role that Moss is going to fill.
But don't forget Singletary is there, and Singletary is a ridiculous upside running back that gives you speed and power that I feel like is going to take over the every down back more than likely. And with having him there, I'm not really worried about those touches from Gore. I think he still gets those yards and still gets those points. But I'm definitely agreeing with you here on plus he got Stephon Diggs.
They added him to bolster, to further bolster Allen with the receiving weapons, but his issues as a passer are very real, and he showed that last season. Allen of quarterbacks that started 16 games ranked last in money throws and struggled with accuracy, and that's the one thing. Like, and you and I were talking about this earlier. The one thing that you have to be when being ranked amongst these top 10 is being consistent.
Yep,
he likes to run, but he's got to work. He's got to be more accurate, and hopefully he has a better supporting cast behind the line in front of him on the line as well. Like you can see that, like his two primary targets last year was Cole Beasley. I'm sorry, and there's that John Brown. Like you gotta now you have someone in Stephon Diggs who's a speed beast, and he's great in the slot as well. It's just a matter of time of them working together and seeing how the season starts off for them, because you know as well that they voted no preseason now.
It's like I think it was like 2 games they agreed on.
I think they said no preseason period now. The NFLPA like voted the other night like no preseason. Like that's not gonna help develop some of these teams right now, especially when you're supposed to be working with new guys. Like, I think it's going to be somewhat difficult to see.
I think that also protects some of the players. But on a closing point on Josh Allen, I just want to break down something between the top quarterbacks that we broke down. So right now we have the top 7 quarterbacks off the board. Okay, and of the top 7 quarterbacks, here's how they ranked in rushing attempts last season. Lamar Jackson was number 1 with 176 rushing attempts. Number 2 was this guy that we're talking about right now, Josh Allen. He had 109 rushing attempts. He had 510 rushing yards with 9 touchdowns. He had 3 2-point conversions. So you see that they clearly used him at the goal line, referencing what Hammer was saying before, like a young Cam Newton. They put him at the goal line, and they let him go in there. They let him get the tough yards. He did have 4 fumbles. That's a product of going in for those tough yards. But it's something that you do like with his upside, and it led to his high point total. At number 3, with the most rushing attempts last year for quarterbacks, it was Kyler Murray, who had 93 rushing yards. He had 544 rushing, or 93 rushing attempts for 544 yards with 4 touchdowns. He also had 3 2-point conversions and had only lost 2 fumbles. This is why we have Murray ranked so high in comparison to a lot of the other players. Watson was actually at number 4. He had 82 rushing attempts for 413 yards. He had 7 touchdowns last season, and he had 1 receiving touchdown, actually. He had 1 2-point conversion and 3 fumbles lost. So this guy, again, he had low fumbles, but he consistently ran the ball, got yards, was using the red zone to get those rushing touchdowns. And then the last quarterback that we're talking about, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks of the top 7 here are in rushing, because it's number 5 is Russell Wilson. He had 75 rushing attempts for 342 yards and 3 touchdowns with 1 2-point conversion and 2 fumbles lost. So again, these are the 5 top running back quarterbacks in the league, and 5 of the top 7 quarterbacks are right there. Okay, Dak Prescott shows up a little bit later, but at the end of the day, rushing quarterbacks dominate, and that's just based off last year's numbers. So we know going forward that's a trend that you want to look at. But you know what? Sometimes you have to buck trends depending on where you're in the draft. And I set that up to set up the player that I'm taking at number 8, which is Tom Brady. This guy doesn't run at all. He doesn't hit the field. He doesn't go out there and get you those extra yards. But when you're putting Tom Brady with Chris Godwin and you're putting him with Mike Evans, I can't resist that at the number 8 pick. It's a safe guy to have. You can use him in matchups. He has that upside. He's someone that you really like with being able to read the defense and use all the weapons he has. He has Gronk. He has Goodwin. He has Evans. What are your thoughts?
I have Breeze at 8. But I will run.
Breeze at 8.
I have Breeze at 8. I have Brady at 9.
Okay.
And like you said, he doesn't run. Brady had 26 rush attempts for 34 yards last year and 3 touchdowns. You know he likes to stay in the pocket. Tom Brady is a player in decline, which becomes no surprise for a player who is going to be 43 next year. Brady's still quite capable of running an NFL offense. He'll be surrounded by far better supporting cast than he has been the last few years. But his production has more or less declined in each of the past 4 seasons. Last year, his 6.8 adjusted yards per completion figure was his poorest showing in that category since 2003. Just think about that. 17 years ago. In addition, his yards, accuracy, touchdowns have been receding for the past 4 or 5 years. He's certainly not the player he once was, but still managed to nearly post QB1 numbers in 2019, playing with a subpar group of pass catchers and backs.
But here's the one thing that we got to say. Brady, I don't think, has ever had a wide receiver core that he has right now, or receiving core in general that he has right now. Between Godwin and Evans, these are 2 of the best wide receivers in the game. You have Godwin, who is an absolute speed threat. You have Evans, who can get up there and get it with any quarterback in the game. You add Gronk in the middle. You have O.J. Howard still on that roster. I think that he has just so many weapons right now, and he's so motivated that I can see taking him over Josh Allen if you don't believe in a Josh Allen and you want to play some matchups. That's tossing hairs, but to me, Brady definitely has a huge upside because he has weapons that he's never had before. You had Breeze there, which is a little bit interesting to me because I actually, if you ask me, and this is probably going to be a little bit risque, but I don't even have Breeze on any of my teams.
What?
Right now.
You don't have him in your top 10?
Not only do I not have him in my top 11, I don't have him on my outside looking in of guys that I'm looking at drafting at the end of the draft to see who I got.
Bro, averaged 20.4 points last year a game.
Yeah.
He's entering the final year in the NFL, but showed no signs of slowing down last season. His true passer rating ranked 3rd at 112. His accuracy rating ranked 1st. His completion percentage under pressure ranked 3rd, 45.5%. His efficiency as a passer translated to QB1 production. Like, I don't know what you're not seeing right now with that one.
See, for me with Breeze, here's the thing. You're telling me that I'm expecting completely everything on Michael Thomas, and Alvin Kamara last year looks like he had a little bit of a regression. I don't know what's going on there as far as that. Taysom Hill is coming in and being a pester body on that system. He's getting a lot of those cheap touchdowns. He's coming in for a lot of weird plays. He's making it to me difficult to own Drew Brees, knowing that Drew Brees is in his final season. You signed Taysom Hill to be that next quarterback. You have Jameis Winston on this roster. I think that you're going to give Taysom Hill the chance to prove to you that he can do it. And I think that kind of sets Breeze up for a little bit of a fall as far as points are concerned. That's the only reason why I don't have Breeze here. For me, at number 9, I kind of have a toss-up at 9, 10, and 11. I feel like these 3 guys are like the guys that we mentioned earlier. You can pretty much take them anywhere and feel confident. If you have a guy that you really love, you kind of make the move there. You could do this in the later part of the draft because these guys have mostly been slept. But we're going to say Carson Wentz, Aaron Rodgers, and Matt Ryan. I probably would take Matt Ryan at number 9, Aaron Rodgers at number 10, and I'm going to take Carson Wentz at number 11. The reason I would do that is simply because I think that Matt Ryan with Calvin Ridley and having Julio Jones, having those 2 big-time wide receivers sets him up for, consistent days of being a good passer. Rodgers, I mean, let's just face it, not last year, but 2 years ago, he put up the best Week 16 scoring ever for a quarterback when he demolished the Jets. And Carson Wentz, he just is the big body talent that a lot of people believe in. I believe in too. What are your thoughts rounding out the top 10?
Rounding out the top 10, I would have my number 10 would have been or is Aaron Rodgers. I know he's slightly on a decline right now from what I'm looking at in regards to the numbers over the last 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I know he's not too happy either with that the quarterback they drafted as well. Say it again?
When they picked Jordan Love from
I know he was not too thrilled about that, but it's easy to look back and see that like he had his poorest statistical season that he's had perhaps like ever, but it's the new emphasis on the rush attack that's been like the reason that he's kind of been on decline. He only had 4 300-yard passing games last year, and he only threw for like 4,002. That's normally not him, and we all know that, and that's what happens when you're playing under a new head coach. Things change. Your schemes are going to change. Like, of course, you want to try to play to your quarterback's strengths, but he didn't really have too many weapons either, like he has throughout his career.
Yep, and on top of that, Davante Adams got hurt in the beginning of the season, which really hindered his outlook for the whole season because he didn't have that big time threat on the outside as a wide receiver. You notice the numbers went up a little bit once you got Adams back because he is the premier wide receiver out there.
Absolutely.
They have a couple of young kids coming up, Valdez Scantling, and a couple of other guys in that core that's kind of interesting. But absolutely, I think everyone was disappointed when not only in the first round did they go quarterback, but the second round they took another running back. Between Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, you thought that the running back position was filled in Green Bay, but by taking another running back, it kind of really makes you a little bit worried about not only Aaron Jones, but possibly what's going on for Aaron Rodgers going forward. That's the only reason why I have him that low personally, and he had a down season, like you said. I have a couple of outside guys looking in outside of our top 10 that I personally really like, that I honestly would take ahead of Drew Brees. So here's the guys that I kind of like. I like Burrows from Cincinnati. His upside kind of is interesting to me. He has AJ Green. You have Ross on the outside. Boyd makes big plays. He has a couple of big time wide receivers. You have not Cedric Becton, but Joe Mixon in there. So they have offensive weapons that I think that Burrows is an interesting play. I don't know exactly where I'm taking it, but if I miss on these guys, this is kind of the guy that I would be looking at to get because he has the upside and the potential to be someone that could be very lucrative point-wise. I also feel the same way with Baker Mayfield. He has a ton of weapons. I have Cam Newton up there because Cam Newton's with the Patriots, and we don't know what they're going to do with him, and that's intriguing to me. And then I have Daniel Jones. Danny Dimes. I think Danny Dimes is the sleeper for this season. I think Danny Dimes could possibly be a top 10 quarterback. I think that Danny Dimes is going to be someone that most people are going to regret not drafting in their drafts this year. I think that Danny Dimes is a baller. He ran the ball, but he had 11 fumbles, which kind of was horrible. He put on 10 pounds of muscle, but I think that Danny Dimes is the number one sleeper that you have at quarterback right now.
I'm begging you, as long as we do these podcasts together, please don't refer to him as Danny Dimes ever again.
Danny Dimes, baby, all day, every day.
You know how he got that nickname? Because he's constantly throwing dimes in a wishing well, hoping to be playing for another team other than the New York Giants. All right.
Whoa.
I said it. I said it.
Whoa. Can we take a look at a second at this boy Danny Jones last year? He had 27 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Oh, sorry.
What?
12 to 24. I was looking at Breeze. I'm sorry. I was one line below.
24 to 12. He half, like really?
Right. That okay. If he can get the touchdown, he needs to work on his interceptions, which I think he's definitely someone who's had the coaching. And I think with the new change, he's going to be able to make some adjustments. He didn't have Golden Tate to start the season. Evan Ingram was hurt for most of the season. You look at Shepard was out for most of the season, so he didn't have a lot of his big weapons. So I think that with them coming back and them being healthy, plus when you look at the fact he had 45 rushing attempts, he scored 2 touchdowns. He has 2 2-point conversions, so they want to use him as a big quarterback. The problem is he had 11 fumbles. He put some weight on. This is a kid, if you're telling me I'm looking on the outside, I want a guy with high upside, a guy that I think that could end up, I missed on all the top guys, and I want my best shot to get a big play. I'm taking Danny Dimes, and I'm going to call him Danny Dimes all year, baby.
God help us all. You mentioned Joe Burrow before, and the funny thing is, with my top, and this is also outside looking in, I have Joe Burrow being drafted before Daniel Jones. And the funny thing is, say it again. You can see that, you said? Cam Newton, obviously, he's outside looking in. Regards to him being with the Patriots right now, I would have him at 13. And this is going straight down the line with 1 through 32 now, since we're going outside looking in. Goff, 16. We both had this conversation about the Rams last week, how that team is a little bit overrated. And I'm looking at the weapons that he has now and what he won't have this coming season. He doesn't have Cooks. He's going to have Higbee, Woods, and Cooper Kupp. Like, Gurley's gone. Like,
I mean, they had a couple of running backs in-house last year that were interesting. So I'm not going to write them off as far as that offense with McVay, but I definitely do have them depressed down. Who would you rather take, a Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff?
Goff, because Mayfield, in my opinion, is number 21 right now. I don't care about the weapons he has. He had a major slide last year. He had a major slide. He had a major slide last year.
I think this could be a segment alone, the outside looking in bubble, where we could actually debate some of these guys and break it down, because I think that's going to be an interesting topic for everyone to delve into. Right now, we covered everybody. We have more coming. I think the next thing that we're going to cover is the running backs for everyone, because I feel like that's the next big primetime position everyone gets geared up for. Jeff, you have any comments or points that you didn't get in on the quarterbacks that you like to end on?
Nah, I think I covered pretty much everything, thanks to the man behind the machine right now. Definitely having a lot of fun doing this. I know it's only our second time, but we're definitely going to keep this running. And for everybody that is watching, I appreciate it. Just continue to share it and get this out there for everybody. For anybody that's trying to get their fantasy football tips for this coming season, because I know a lot of you guys are going to be starting to do your drafts momentarily. Just take a look at our videos. You could always reach out to us as well. We're on all the social media platforms, and let's just get to it. We want to do everything we can to help you guys have a successful season this year.
And I want to close it out with this final question, this final one. In the Battle of New York, and we're going to throw in Las Vegas. I'm going to throw in 3 controversial quarterbacks right now. In fantasy football, who are you taking first, second, and third between these 3 guys, Derek Carr, Sam Darnold, and Daniel Jones?
You're really putting me on the spot right now.
Real quick on the spot. 1, 2, 3.
I got Raider Nation watching me now too, because I already had this conversation with them. But I'm sorry. I'll take Carr. I would take Carr. I would take Jones, and then I would take Sam Darnold.
Gotcha. I'm a little bit flipped on the top. I'm just gonna take Daniel Jones, obviously, before take Carr, and then I would take Sam Darnold. I am worried about Sam Darnold, but that's time for another story. I hope everyone had fun. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We'll be looking forward to giving you more content, getting things ready for you for your fantasy football season. We know we got baseball coming, but we just want to kind of get a little bit of a break to see who's coming positive with the corona testing, who's going to be opting out. So we're kind of holding off on the rest of the rankings right now until we get that information. But this is TDS signing out, saying have a wonderful night, and we'll see you guys again next time.